A racist cop arrests a woman he thinks is just another civilian, unaware he's made a career-ending mistake. What will happen when she makes one phone call that changes everything? Let us know in the comments section below. She didn't flinch. Cassandra Ellison sat motionless in her matte black Jeep Grand Cherokee, her index finger tapping lightly on the screen of the military-grade GPS mounted to her dashboard. She wasn't lost, she was recalculating. Fort Mitchell's back roads had shifted after years of construction, and though she'd been stationed there a dozen times, even the most decorated generals could lose their bearings when the land refused to stay still. Blue and red lights exploded in her rearview mirror. The hum of idle traffic on the Georgia highway faded into the background as her eyes lifted to the flashing reflection behind her. She sighed, not out of fear, not even irritation, but that deep, tired sigh only black folks understood, the kind you let out when history taps you on the shoulder, whispering, "Not again." She lowered the window. "Hands where I can see them." The bark was sharp, unnecessary, designed to provoke. Officer Brent Mullery had both hands on his belt as he approached, one hovering near his holster, his voice already laced with the assumption that she was a threat. Cassandra's hands were already resting on the steering wheel, at 10 and 2, her nails neatly filed, tapping gently in rhythm, an old trick to slow her heart rate. She looked straight ahead, shoulders square, her face composed with the kind of grace taught in war rooms, not beauty salons. "Ma'am, I need to see your license and registration," he snapped. "And reaching now," she said calmly. He didn't reply, just watched her like she might lunge at any moment. She moved deliberately, slowly, pulling the documents from her glove compartment. She kept her eyes on her own hands, never making any sudden moves, just as every black parent has instructed their children since time immemorial. It didn't matter that she had 3 stars stitched onto her shoulder epaulets, or that she'd sat across from foreign presidents as a representative of the United States military. To Officer Mullery, Cassandra Ellison was just another ma'am in a dark car, on the wrong side of the highway. "Registration's up to date," she offered, her voice still flat, still respectful. "I was pulled over because I was parked off the road, adjusting my GPS." Nothing illegal about that. He didn't even glance at the papers. Instead, he stepped back, hand still near his gun, thumb tapping the latch. "Step out of the vehicle." She turned her head slowly. "I'm not under arrest." "Stamp out." A man in a gray Toyota Camry pulled over across the road and turned his phone camera toward the scene. Another car slowed. Someone shouted, "Why is she being pulled over?" "She didn't do anything." But the officer ignored them. Cassandra glanced toward the phone screen glowing across the highway. She wasn't surprised these days, truth didn't matter until it went viral. She unbuckled her seatbelt, opened the door, and stepped out, all movements fluid, controlled, the kind of control that's drilled into people who've learned the weight of uniform and consequence. "You have any weapons on you?" Mullery asked. She turned slightly, to show both sides of her body. "No, officer. I'm active duty. My weapons are secured on base." "Oh, so now you're military?" he sneered. "I didn't say military, I said active duty." "Yeah, sure." "What are you, a mechanic?" he smirked. Cassandra didn't answer. The moment stretched. Behind them, traffic crept by like a slow-moving audience, unsure whether they were witnessing a tragedy or a lesson. Her heartbeat steady, trained. She hadn't survived Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and the Pentagon's politics to be shaken by a man who hadn't finished reading her ID card. He walked around her car, inspecting it like he was trying to find something, anything, that would justify his aggression. He tapped the back window with his flashlight, then returned to her. "Got anything in the vehicle I should know about?" "No, officer." "You've got tinted windows." "That's illegal." "It's legal for military vehicles registered on base." "I can show you the documentation." "I didn't ask for a lecture, ma'am." "That word again, ma'am." Not General, not Ellison, not even Cassandra, just a ma'am full of suspicion and contempt. A beat passed. She shifted her weight. "Officer, I'd like to call someone now." "I believe we're well past the point of this being a routine stop." "Oh, you'll call someone, all right," he muttered. You're not going anywhere. Hands behind your back. And just like that, he was cuffing her, metal cold on her wrists, the asphalt still warm beneath her boots, one knee pressed into the small of her back as he pushed her toward the hood of her own Jeep. The camera across the street zoomed in. 2 more cars pulled over. Someone shouted her name, not her rank, but her name. Cassandra's mind didn't go blank, it never did. Even restrained, even humiliated, even pinned by a man who couldn't read the stars on her collar, her mind stayed sharp. She looked up, the sky above was cloudless, sun glaring. Mullery didn't know, couldn't have known, but when she made that call, when she said the name and gave the code, this entire interstate would become a chessboard, and every piece would move at her command. Still, she didn't speak yet. Let him have his moment. Let him bask in this illusion of power. There was a silence that followed, the kind that feels thick, heavy, like it's waiting to be broken by a storm. Only the storm wasn't coming from the sky, it was coming from Washington, D.C., and it had just been awakened. She didn't scream, she didn't resist, as her face pressed gently into the hood of her car. Cassandra Ellison kept her breathing even in slow inhale, slower exhale. Not because she was afraid, but because she understood something Officer Brent Mullery never would, that restraint is its own form of power. He fumbled at her waist, searching her pockets, patting her down like she was a street-level suspect. His breath smelled like stale coffee and control issues. She could hear the buckle of his belt jingle with every movement. "You military types think you're above the law," he muttered. "Bet you're one of those affirmative action hires, huh?" Cassandra said nothing. Words could be used against you, even the right ones, especially the right ones. Across the road, Captain Miguel Herrera had moved from the shoulder of his car. His phone was still recording, hand steady as a surgeon's. Unlike the others, who were watching out of curiosity, Miguel recognized the upright posture, the squared shoulders, the way Cassandra moved. He didn't know her name yet, but he knew a soldier, and that was enough to keep filming, even when part of him wanted to intervene. He was an army captain, he'd served long enough to know what stripes meant. The woman being handcuffed wasn't some random civilian with a chip on her shoulder. She was somebody. Mullery, oblivious, was on his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4782 OD. I've got a female suspect, uncooperative, says she's military, probably lying. I'm bringing her in." The voice on the other end crackled, "Roger that. You need backup?" He looked around, noticing the cluster of cars, the phones in the air. "Negative, just a crowd forming. I'll handle it." Cassandra shifted slightly, not enough to alarm him, but enough to ease the pressure from her wrists. "You're making a mistake, officer." Her voice wasn't raised, but it sliced clean through the air, like a blade dipped in ice. He snorted. "Yeah? And what, your commanding officer is going to come down here and spank me?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned her head just enough for her voice to carry toward the crowd. "Can someone call Fort Mitchell Base Operations? Tell them General Cassandra Ellison is being detained off Highway 94, southbound, marker 212. The name hit like a hammer. Miguel dropped his phone for half a second, picked it back up, mouth slightly open. General Cassandra Ellison, that name wasn't just somebody. She was a legend, 3 tours, NATO command, recipient of the Distinguished Service Medal, one of the highest-ranking black women in the history of the United States Army, and she was being cuffed like a petty thief on the side of a Georgia road. Miguel's instincts kicked in. He stepped into the road, lifting his badge from around his neck and holding it high. His voice was clear, firm, and without hesitation. "Sir. Captain Miguel Herrera, U.S. Army. I'm requesting you stop this detainment immediately." Mullery froze. He turned his head slowly, squinting like he didn't believe what he was hearing. "Who the hell are you?" "I just told you, Captain Herrera. And that woman is General Cassandra Ellison. She outranks every single soul in this state, including your sheriff." Mullery looked down at Cassandra, then back at Miguel. "Doesn't matter," he mumbled. "Nobody's above the law." "Correct," Miguel replied, "and neither are you." Mullery tightened his grip on Cassandra's arm, yanking her upright. You military guys always think you can throw rank around like it means something in the real world. Cassandra stood tall now. She was close enough to look Mallory in the eyes. Her expression didn't show anger, it showed clarity. This is the real world, officer, and it's about to meet the part of it you didn't think would ever touch you. He scoffed, turning to open the back door of his cruiser. But the sound that followed changed everything, the low, roaring chop of an approaching helicopter. It wasn't news. It wasn't life flight. It was military. You could tell by the precision of its hover, by the dull thud of the rotors that made your chest rattle before your ears even registered the sound. It descended just out of view, a half-mile down the road, its matte gray body bearing no local insignia. Mallory's hand slipped off the cruiser door. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. Cassandra didn't answer, and she didn't have to. Her phone, still in the Jeep's cup holder, buzzed once, then twice, then went silent. Colonel Teresa Maddox was already en route. A black SUV pulled up behind the line of cars, clean and fast, with tinted windows and a small government plate on the bumper. The passenger door opened before the vehicle came to a full stop. A woman stepped out, sharp navy pantsuit, silver hair pulled back into a tight bun, and eyes that missed nothing. "Teresa." Miguel stepped back instinctively. Mallory didn't move. "Which one of you is responsible for this nonsense?" Teresa asked. Her voice wasn't loud, it didn't have to be. It carried the weight of command in every syllable. "Officer Mallory," he began. This woman was uncooperative, possibly impersonating military personnel. Teresa raised one hand. "Silence." He blinked, confused. Teresa walked past him, straight to Cassandra, who still had cuffs digging into her wrists. "You all right, General?" "I'm fine," Cassandra replied, just waiting for someone with common sense to arrive. Teresa pulled a small key from her pocket and undid the cuffs herself. It took 3 seconds. Miguel let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Teresa turned to Mallory. "You detained a 3-star general without verifying her identification. You ignored a direct statement of rank and violated federal statutes regarding active military personnel. Do you have any idea what that means?" Mallory opened his mouth. "Stop talking," Teresa said again. "Every word you say is digging the hole deeper." He looked around, now realizing for the first time how many cameras were recording, not just phones, dash cams, body cams from passing sheriff's deputies, even a drone hovering quietly overhead. Cassandra rolled her shoulders, adjusting her posture. Her wrists were red and sore, but her spine, it hadn't bent once. Mallory backed up, stammered something about just doing his job. Cassandra finally spoke. "Your job is to serve, not to assume, not to intimidate, and definitely not to humiliate civilians because they don't fit your expectations of who belongs where." He didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say. The silence returned, thicker now, pregnant with consequence. And when Cassandra turned toward her Jeep, brushing the dirt from her sleeves, she didn't look back. She didn't have to, because now, they knew her name. The room was cold, sterile, and way too white for comfort. Officer Brent Mallory sat stiffly in the Internal Affairs conference room, hands clasped tight on the table in front of him. His knee bounced under the surface, nervous energy trying to escape through professionalism. A single folder lay unopened at the center of the table, thick with printed screenshots, time-stamped footage, and written statements. Across from him sat Deputy Chief Alan Breyer, face unreadable, fingers steepled under his chin. He hadn't said a word in 5 minutes, just stared. Then, finally, "Do you know who General Cassandra Ellison is?" Brent swallowed. He'd heard the name now 100 times in the last 24 hours, repeated by reporters, echoed by protesters, and whispered by his own colleagues in the break room like it was sacred. But hearing it from Breyer's mouth made it feel heavier. "Yeah," he said, "I know now." Breyer leaned back in his chair. "You had no idea when you cuffed her." "She didn't tell me her full name," Brent clarified. Breyer raised an eyebrow. "She said she was active duty." "People say that all the time," Brent shot back. "I've had people claim to be Marines, senators, hell, even one guy said he was Beyoncé's cousin." Breyer didn't laugh. "Did she resist?" No, did she insult you? No, threaten you? No. Breyer tapped his fingers against the table, slow and rhythmic. Then what made you escalate it? Brent hesitated. She was dismissive. She didn't follow instructions right away. It felt like she was hiding something. You mean like credentials? A name badge? Military identification? I didn't see any at first. She was adjusting her GPS when I pulled up. And what prompted the stop in the first place? She was parked on the side of the road. Breyer said nothing, just stared again. Brent looked down at his hands. The silence was worse than any shouting. After a pause, Breyer finally spoke, this time quieter. Brent, she's a general, a real one. Not just high-ranking, she's history-making. You handcuffed her on the side of the highway like she was trespassing at a gas station. Brent's mouth opened, but nothing came out. You embarrassed this department, Breyer said, leaning forward now. You embarrassed this city. And more than that, you gave every person who's ever accused us of racism a brand new headline with your name on it. Brent looked up. I didn't do it because she's black. But she is black, Breyer shot back, and you did do it. Whether or not you think that's why, everyone else gets to draw the line between the two. And guess what? So far, that line's looking real damn straight. Across town, Cassandra Ellison sat in the living room of her brother's brownstone apartment, surrounded by silence and soft shadows. Her boots were off, her hair tied up, but her mind was still in full uniform. Elijah sat across from her, legs crossed, legal pad resting on his thigh. He wore glasses now, even though he still pretended he didn't need them. He'd traded his activism hoodie from college for a navy suit, but his heart was still the same. You sure you want to go public? He asked. Cassandra didn't answer right away. She was staring at the screen of her phone, watching the clip again in Mallory's voice, her own restraint, the moment Miguel stepped forward, and the silence when her name was finally said aloud. It's already public, she said. I didn't put it there, but it's out. And now I have to choose how to respond. Elijah nodded slowly. The press wants a statement. I don't want to make this about me. But it is about you, he said, firm. That man didn't stop a stranger, he stopped you. A woman who commands entire divisions, a woman who's bled and fought and survived things that most Americans only know through history books and CNN. You are a symbol, Cass. I'm not interested in being a symbol. Well, too late, he said. The question is, what kind of symbol are you going to be? She set her phone down. What would you do if it were you? She asked softly. He sat back. If I were you, I'd hold a press conference. I'd name names. I'd demand termination, policy reform, and make sure that every cop in that city watches your video during sensitivity training until the end of time. She smirked. And what would you do if you were you? He looked at her carefully. If I were me, I'd remind you that this isn't about revenge, it's about responsibility. She nodded, quiet. Outside the apartment, a group of teenagers stood on the corner, holding signs. One of them read, "She protected the country, but who protects her?" The doorbell rang. Cassandra rose slowly, every movement deliberate. Elijah followed behind her. She opened the door. Captain Miguel Herrera stood in the hallway, hat in his hand. I wasn't sure if I should come, he said. She stepped aside. You're welcome here. He entered, looking around the living room, taking in the medals on the shelf, the photographs of Cassandra with soldiers, white, black, brown, all smiling like family. I just came to say thank you, he said. For what? For how you handled it. I don't think I could have kept that calm. She gave a small smile. I've had years of practice. Miguel looked at her. I meant what I said, you changed something yesterday. That video is going to live longer than all of us. And for once, the hero doesn't die in the third act. She laughed softly, the kind of laugh you let out when you're still hurting, but healing too. Do you regret not fighting back? He asked. She shook her head. No. Because if I had, you wouldn't be here right now. And neither would that camera. That man would have written the ending himself. But now the world's writing it for him. At that moment, Cassandra's phone lit up again, a text from Colonel Teresa Maddox, PUS request, private briefing national awareness. Are you ready? She stared at it for a long second, then locked the screen. I'm ready, she said. Miguel nodded. You're not just a general anymore, ma'am. Cassandra turned to him, eyes calm but steady. No. Now I'm a mirror. And he's not the only one who's going to have to look. The media trucks formed a quiet wall outside the Pentagon's south entrance, cables snaking across the pavement like vines, cameras angled toward the podium with unwavering focus. A crowd had gathered behind the barricades, some holding flags, others holding cardboard signs with marker-inked messages like "We stand with Cassandra" and "Rank doesn't erase color, but it should protect dignity." Inside the briefing room, the air buzzed with preparation. Reporters whispered among themselves, testing microphones, phones adjusting cameras, shuffling notepads. There were no leaks this time, no press tip-offs, only a short statement delivered by the White House earlier that morning. General Cassandra Ellison will speak at 2 p.m. Eastern. No questions will be taken. And at 2 p.m. exactly, she stepped onto the stage, no military fanfare, no entourage, just her in uniform, chest decorated with medals earned across 3 continents and 2 decades of service. She walked to the podium, her face calm, but her eyes holding the kind of truth no one could look away from. She didn't fumble with notes, didn't clear her throat, she just began. My name is Cassandra Ellison. I'm a daughter, a sister, a soldier. I've served this country for 26 years. I've led troops into combat. I've negotiated with warlords. I've carried wounded soldiers across sand and stood at the funerals of men and women who never made it home. She paused, just briefly. And last week, I stood on the side of a Georgia highway with my face pressed against the hood of my car, not as a threat, not as a criminal, but because someone looked at my skin and assumed it mattered more than my stars. The room held its breath. I don't stand here today to shame a man. I stand here to reveal a system, one where a black woman in uniform can be decorated with medals, but still deemed suspicious before she speaks, where service is acknowledged only when it fits the narrative, and dignity is conditional. She looked up, meeting the gaze of the crowd, the cameras, the country. I will not ask for justice, because justice isn't something that should be begged for. I will expect it, not just for me, but for the countless others who don't wear a uniform and don't have a recording nearby. I was lucky. But luck should never be the only shield between someone and injustice. No one clapped, not because it wasn't powerful, but because the weight of it settled too deep in the chest. She gave a final nod and stepped back. Outside, the silence broke with the rise of chanting, not loud, not angry, just firm, General Ellison. General Ellison. Cassandra walked back through the corridor, her heels echoing off marble as she re-entered the secure wing. Teresa Maddox was waiting. That, Teresa said, was the sound of a country turning its head. Cassandra raised an eyebrow. Turning is easy. Looking is harder. Then we'll make them look, Teresa replied. That evening, Officer Brent Mullery was handed a sealed envelope by the Internal Affairs Board. The words inside were direct and brief, effective immediately: your employment with the Kingsford Police Department is terminated. He sat in his empty apartment, the news playing low in the background, the footage again, her face, her voice, her words. He muted the TV. He'd thought about apologizing, thought about sending a statement, but what would it say? I didn't know? It wasn't about race? The truth was, it had always been about race, not in a cross-burning, slur-yelling way, but in that quieter, more dangerous way: the assumptions, the suspicion, the need to dominate first, ask questions later. He stared at the paper until the words blurred. Across town, Captain Miguel Herrera returned to Fort Mitchell Base. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing: interview requests, thank you messages, even a commendation letter from the Secretary of Defense. He ignored most of it. Instead, he walked to the base chapel, sat in the second pew, and closed his eyes. He didn't pray, not in the traditional sense, but he breathed, and he thought about how close it had come to being worse, how easily the day could have ended with another name on a hashtag. And he was grateful. 2 days later, Cassandra stood outside a public school in Southeast D.C., invited to speak not by a senator, not by a network, but by a ninth-grade teacher named Ms. Carmichael. The classroom was filled with black and brown kids, some fidgeting, some skeptical, all curious. "Y'all really gonna bring a general in here and expect us not to ask questions?" one kid laughed. Cassandra smiled. "Ask anything you want." A girl in the front row raised her hand. "Weren't you scared when that cop pulled you over?" Cassandra took a moment, then she answered. "I was steady." "That's different." "I was steady because I've been scared before, and I've learned that fear can't speak for me." A boy near the back leaned forward. "But, you outranked him. Why didn't you just tell him off?" "Because rank doesn't stop bullets." "And I knew my strength wasn't in shouting, it was in being undeniable." They nodded slowly. Another voice, softer. "Do you think that's enough?" Cassandra looked at her, a young girl with tight braids and eyes that didn't blink. "No. It's not enough. But it's a start." The girl nodded. And then, without prompting, every student stood up, no claps, no fanfare, they just stood. Because sometimes, standing is louder than applause. Later that week, Congress approved a bipartisan proposal requiring all law enforcement departments receiving federal funding to implement Ellison protocols, mandatory de-escalation training, military verification procedures, and racial bias recalibration programs. It wasn't everything, but it was more than nothing. And it carried her name. Back in her home in Virginia, Cassandra walked barefoot across her living room floor, the late evening sun casting long shadows across the family photos lining her wall. She stopped in front of one, a younger version of her in fatigues, holding a folded flag at her father's funeral. He'd been a veteran too, fought in Vietnam, came home to be called the N-word in his own country. He never got the medals, but he got the burden. She touched the edge of the frame gently, then walked to the balcony. The air smelled like grass and heat and something else, something like newness. Elijah called her that night. He didn't say much, just, "I'm proud of you." And she responded, "Thanks. But it's not over." He paused. "It never is." She smiled. "That's the point. We keep showing up." And when she hung up, she looked out over the darkening horizon, where the last light dipped behind the city skyline. She had worn many uniforms, fought many battles, but the one she just won? That one felt different. Because this time, she wasn't fighting a foreign enemy. She was fighting for home. And home had finally started to listen. Want to know what happens next? Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because this story's far from over, and you won't want to miss what's coming on ZJ Stories.